stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right, we're going to move on to some recognition. Golden Apples, Dr. Bernia.
All right, our recipient this evening is Dave Rutledge. Dave, are you here? All right, Dave, come on up and stand right here in the most uncomfortable spot in the room. You can come up and take as many pictures as you want. That's perfect right there. Dave Rutledge is the school psychologist at Walled Lake Northern. Dave's nominator wished to remain anonymous, but did share that he is the ultimate professional and leader. The nominator added that Dave is a role model for others by being a lifelong learner. Greg Diamond, principal at Walled Lake Northern, celebrated Dave's nomination, sharing, "Dave Rutledge is an outstanding school psychologist. He has the ability to share information to parents in a way that is understandable, reassuring, and even comforting. At Walled Lake Northern, we have come to count on Dave's excellent communication skills to help us make sure the parents fully understand their child's situation and all of the options we have to help their child. Dave is also a great friend and colleague in the building. He always has a cup of coffee or a comforting word in his office should you need one. Dave Rutledge is the most deserving recipient of the district's prestigious Golden Apple Award." Some of our principals might see that differently, but Mr. Diamond, your feedback is noted. Dave, thank you for all you do to support the members of Northern Nation. You truly make it a great day to be a knight, and it's our honor to recognize you this evening. Dave Rutledge.
Congratulations. If you want to say something, you may. If you don't want to, that's okay too. But you have the floor for a moment if you would like to say anything.
Okay.
So I've been in Walled Lake a few years. This is my 35th. When Dr. Roseborough, who was the deputy superintendent of human resources, hired me, he asked me, if I offer you the job, would you accept? I said, I would. He said, I'm offering. I said, I'm accepting. And I told him at the time, I said, Dr. Roseborough, you just hired me for my career. And I've been here for 3.5 decades and have seen the school district grow, go through some struggles, but I've never been prouder to be in Walled Lake than I am today. I've still got a little tread on the tires. I don't know how much longer, but to the community and to leadership in this district, thank you for trusting me to be your school psychologist. Thank you.
Thank you. And next on our agenda is spring sports. Dr. Bernia.
I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Lons.
Thank you, sir. It's my pleasure to turn it over to Mr. Brian Swinehart, who is our district athletic director.
Thank you very much. And first of all, congratulations to Dave. My children all went through Northern, and a truly outstanding recipient for this. He is a remarkable man in person, and appreciate all you've done for my kids personally, so thank you with that. And I also like to just say thank you, first of all, the board for your support of athletics, Dr. Bernia, for everything we go through in your support, and then Dr. Lons, who I worked hand in hand with. Appreciate all your support of everything, the initiatives we've been able to move forward in our work together with this. I really do appreciate it. So I try to vary a little bit in talking about athletics as we're looking at the slideshow presenting through here. An article I read that came across, it was an older one that talked about hiring athletes and why it's important to hire athletes. And when I say athletes, and I remarked about this last time, it's not just athletes, it's those that are in the band, it's those that are in any extracurricular activity. I think it's really, really important that we understand that. But it talked about why your next employer should be a former athlete, because success in athletics does lead to success in the workforce. And the first thing is athletes are very achievement-oriented. They work towards a goal. They work towards wanting to get things done. And they understand that winning and losing and being a part of that and preparing and working hard is an essential element to life. And also they get used to just getting rid of all the noise and really trying to become focused on what's important and what they need to do. And those things in the workforce and in the business world are really, really important. One of the most important things I think that they teach is resilience, because athletes have failed time and time again. They fail more often than they have success. I think those failures and working through those failures, whether it's in the business world or something's happening, translates, the failures in athletics and getting over those translates in the business world. The other thing I think is really, really important is a lot of times they've already had their toughest boss, and that's their coach. And the coach that's there every single day, that's pushing them, that challenges them, wants them to do more, every type of thing. We've had us athletes, our toughest boss, we've already had with that. Athletes have to communicate. There's no way, even if it's in individual sports or what's going on, you're part of a team. You have to learn to work together, communicate, do all those things. In the workforce, rarely are you ever isolated in your own area. I think about, my personal experience with my children as I went through, and all of them were athletes in their own different way. And one of them is my son now, who works remotely. But what is he still doing? He's still working with a team. He's still in that environment. He still has to have his calls that he's doing things and working with his team, and everybody has those roles. And I think that's another part that's important. And it gets back to that area of being team-oriented, putting the team in front of yourself and being more important than that. And then finally is the time management. Again, I know personally and friends of my children that our athletes are put through a tremendous amount when it comes to practices, the late hours, but many of those student athletes are also very successful in the classroom. They're taking 3, 4 AP classes. They come home from practice, they have dinner, they go right into their room or the table, and they're studying till 1 or 2 in the morning. Now, I wish my son might have done a little bit more of that when he was in school. I know, but still, when we're working that time management piece is extremely important in the workplace and what they're doing. And it's one of the things I think is really, really important to keep hammering home is that successful participation in extracurricular activities is what is key to being successful later in life. And that key point is successful. The athletes that you see here today are an example of that success. These are the top athletes. These are the top athletes not only in Walled Lake, but in the state. As you look through these, the state qualifiers, the state all-state, we had state champions. We've had numerous success on the athletic field. And I think that success is what translates into success later in life. And we really hope that, I think back again, a quick story with my daughter. She was a competitive gymnast, and she was pretty good. And she was going through, I remember I'm at the local gym, and she's young, and the coach says, if she stays with us until she graduates, she'll have a college scholarship. My response was, you're saying that to the wrong person. Because if I took what I paid every month and put it into a college fund, I would have her college paid for. She is here because I want her to learn the value of sports, athletics, of competing, of pushing yourself, being uncomfortable, dealing with adversity, falling off that beam, and getting back up on top of it. And I think those types of things are what are really, really important to remember. As we look at the successes that are here for these athletes, I guarantee you there are numerous times where these athletes have failed. Success is not a straight line. It's ups and downs, and it's challenges and all those things that we face. And I really do appreciate you giving us a chance to recognize our athletes here tonight. And as I go through and end, I'll end what I've been, this is my 26th year as an athletic director. And I started way back a long time ago with some key pieces at the end of every coach's meeting that I talk about. And I think that these are things that are really, really important to look at. Number one is I believe our kids want discipline. I believe they want the structure. They want the organization of those things when it comes to athletics, and they want the discipline. Be demanding, push them, but do it the right way. We don't degrade, we don't chew out those types of things. Be demanding and push them in that right directions. Have high expectations. There's nothing to apologize for if you're pushing your kids for those high expectations. But always remember, and this is the truth, it's not about the winning and the losing. We want to strive to win, prepare to win, do all those things for winning. But what's really important are the relationships and the memories. Because the scoreboard's going to be turned off before they leave the pool, the field, the gym, whatever it is, the scoreboard's off. So you better have relationships and memories that are there. And then the last one is, I think, don't ever, and this is the most important thing in athletics and for our coaches to remember, is don't ever underestimate your ability to make a true difference in a young person's life. And I think that's the why we're here for athletics, because that success in athletics does translate into the classroom and later on in life. And so we do truly appreciate your support that you give to us in Walled Lake, allowing us to be able to have the many offerings that we have, which a quick plug here, offering, as I've talked to a lot of you already, unified soccer we're adding this fall. Extremely pleased with that. And again, thank you, Dr. Lyons, for your support and helping us push forward. Julianne, for everything going through and your support to help us get this done. Can't thank you enough for that, because it's another example of what true athletics is about. So I'm excited for those things and excited for all the opportunities. So again, thank you, and appreciate everything. Anything?
So, Mr. Dirk and Mr. Swinehart, is this up on our website? It might be nice.
That
if
would
we
be
could
great,
Put
yeah.
it somewhere so people could see it.
Yes, yeah.
Out on our
I know.
website.
I think in the past they've sent it out in the newsletter, the weekly newsletter, the link for these things.
Yeah.
That I know you've done that in the past, but on the website I think would be a good addition as well.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
We now have our 2019 bond update. Dr. Bernia?
I'm going to turn the floor over to Mr. Chatfield, who's going to give you an update on Phase 4 of our bond work and talk a little bit about Phase 5. Mr. Chatfield.
Thank you, Dr. Bernia. And thank you for the opportunity to provide an update on what has been an extremely busy of construction throughout the district. So over the next few minutes, I'll just provide some highlights of some of the work that was done. So in terms of the Phase 4 scheduled bond schools this summer, that are these Geisler Middle School and Pleasant Lake, Hickory Woods, and Meadowbrook. And it's hard to believe, but this summer wrapped up all of the bond work at the elementary and middle schools. So all we have left are phases 5 and 6, and of course the work at Western, which we'll talk about in a minute. But in terms of these 4 schools, they received all of the similar renovations as the Phase 1, 2, and 3 schools, including in the upper left, classroom renovations, including the for these 3 elementary schools in particular. They all have integrated coat rooms, and all of the coat rooms were updated with new hooks and cabinetry and flooring. Some of the schools got new carpeting there in the upper center. All of the schools received the standard restroom renovations that include all hands-free dispensers and devices for sanitation purposes. And all of the 3 elementary schools and Geisler as well had their staff lounges renovated for the convenience of the staff that work so hard there. And they're very modern-looking lounge areas with new kitchens. And we also took the opportunity, a very simple and cheap fix that the architects designed in, is an upgrade of the privacy room that's always existed in these staff lounges there in the lower right. And as you can tell, it looks very comfy, and they have referred to that as the Zen Den for staff. So when they have time during the day, they'll have a nice place to relax. So those projects turned out very well. In addition, at these Phase 4 schools, all of the media centers were converted and turned into what we call learning commons, the same as all of the prior schools had seen. And they have a STEM-oriented Tinker Lab and all new furnishings. And as you can see, these are very vibrant spaces. They have multiple work areas that are designed to stimulate creative thinking and work. And we've seen from experience that that's exactly what they do in the schools where they're in place. On the 2 pictures on the right, we had the opportunity to renovate the Geisler Design Tech Lab and classroom. So the creative minds of those middle schoolers will be equally stimulated with those new spaces. One of the key differences, well, let me start with at the Phase 4 schools, we were able to do a number of parking lot replacements. All schools got new cafeteria tables there in the middle on bottom. One of the unique features of three of these 4 schools, Pleasant Lake, Geisler, and Hickory Woods, was the replacement of the univents. And these were the only 3 schools remaining that had the old horizontal univents that were on the outside wall that blew the air up through the top of the units in hopes that it would reach the front of the room eventually. It worked. They worked. They served their purpose for 30 years, but it was time to replace those. And the picture in the upper right is of the new vertical univents. Those are the similar units that we've got in all of our other classrooms. The real benefit of these is they're ducted into the classroom space for better air distribution, better air quality. Each room has one of these, so each teacher has a varying degree of control of their own personal space, which believe me, saves the maintenance department a lot of phone calls when people can adjust their own thermostats. So that's very helpful. The pictures in the lower right are simply a demonstration of what it took to put those new vertical univents out. We literally had to take, and this happened 98 times, 98 units were replaced this summer, where we had to go through and cut openings in the walls and block and brick up those old louvers where the horizontal units were. So a very destructive process, but it turned out great. And then one of the other test projects that we completed this summer, those 2 pictures on the left, upper and lower, are of what we term a distributed antenna system. And this might not surprise anybody, but we oftentimes hear how poor the cellular service is in some of our schools. I didn't think that would surprise anybody. And in some schools it is. This DAS system is designed to amplify the cellular signal of the 4 major carriers throughout the school so that we will have reliable cellular service anywhere in the school for routine or emergency purposes. It also includes amplification of the emergency responder signals for fire and police. So this is quite a remarkable process and project, and it isn't yet operational. We're still waiting on a couple of approvals from 2 of the cellular carrier providers, but we're hopeful that this proves to be as successful as what we have been informed that it will be, so that if we have an opportunity in the future, we can expand it to other schools. So a very cool project, and it's still a work in progress. And if you've driven up Beck Road lately, you'll see that Western High School is making great progress in terms of its academic wing construction. These are views. The upper left is the view from the west side. The upper right is the view from the north side where the staff entrance will be. The lower right is the back of the building where the receiving area will be. And the picture in the center is, again, on the west, but that will be the new main entrance when it is completed. The picture on the lower left is a picture I copied from my presentation here last year. That is exactly the same location as the picture above it. So you can see in the past year they've made a lot of great progress. And in terms of where they're at, the windows are about halfway installed, and they hope to have the entire enclosure closed in by the end of October so they can begin putting in temporary heat and do interior finishes. On the inside right now, the picture on the left is of the new main entrance. That'll be the new western entrance corridor, 2-story corridor. The upper right is the student commons area with the seating stairwell that will be adjacent to the lunch servery area. So we envision kids utilizing that throughout the day. And in the one in the middle, lower middle, is simply progress of the block construction. That actually was taken several weeks ago, and all of the interior block walls are nearly complete now. So that project is progressing very nicely, and the plans for that project are that we will open that building in less than a year from now. So we are nervously, anxiously excited about that, but looking forward to it. And then next year, I'll talk about that in a minute. It's just a couple of other projects that were done in addition. The Keith PTA, if you recall, the board approved a recommendation for them to install a turf system. The PTA funded and paid for the installation of a artificial turf in their interior courtyard. And you can see that turned out beautiful. The picture right below it is what it looked like just prior to when the contractors arrived to install that turf. So they'll get some great educational benefits from that. And lower right, thanks to our EnviroClean staff, we had a number of gym floors that got refinished and have a nice shiny look to them for the start of the school year. In terms of coming attractions, we have, last month, the board approved bid recommendations for the construction of the high school team, athletic team buildings. These are facilities that will be constructed adjacent to the stadium fields at all three high schools for the purposes of the athletes that use those fields and adjacent fields. So as you can see, that's a floor plan. They're designed to be a space for home and visiting teams to prepare in before games and to retreat to during and after the game. So our stadium facilities do not have this now. Our athletes have to go into the building. Visiting athletes, if they need to go into the building, also have to go into the building. Very inconvenient, and this will provide them a space right next to the fields to do that. They include spaces for, obviously, the teams, the coaches, the officials, and there's a trainer's room in there for injuries and such. And but these are not, I just want to point out, these are not what one would term a field house. Some people have seen field houses. Brighton recently built a $25 million field house. That's not what these are. These are not practice facilities. These are simply team buildings for the athletes to have a place to go and prepare. Work is scheduled to start as soon as fall sports are over. Probably about a month from now, you will see groundbreaking on these facilities at all three high schools. And we are in the process of preparing for next summer's Phase 5 bond schools, Central High School and the Outdoor Education Center, as well as Western High School renovations. Next summer, Western, once we are prepared to begin moving into the new addition, we will demolish the current A, B, and C wings, and Phase 1 of the renovations to the remainder of the building will be underway. Renovations to what will remain of Western High School will actually take place in 3 phases. So Phase 1 of the renovation piece for Western will start next summer. And you'll start seeing bid recommendations for Central and the Outdoor Center arriving in December and January. So we're looking forward to that. And so, you know, I just want to point out we completed a tremendous amount of work this summer. That would not have been possible without, you know, the efforts of our bond partners at TMP and AUK and the capable consultants and contractors that they bring to Walled Lake schools. I have had more than one contractor tell me they really like bidding and getting awarded projects in Walled Lake schools because we do so many things right. And that doesn't happen by accident. That happens with having good partners and having a supportive board that approves bid recommendations, so we greatly appreciate that. And then I also want to just thank the staff at the schools that worked on this summer. You know, it takes a tremendous amount of coordination and effort to complete anywhere from $6 to $8 million worth of work per school in 10 weeks. It requires a lot of sacrifice on the part of our teachers and our principals and our staff members at the schools. And so without that sacrifice and without that support, this wouldn't have been possible. So I just want to extend a thank you to the principals and the teachers and the staff at those bond schools who worked with us and allowed us to get these things done. And we hope you enjoy your classrooms this fall. And with that wraps up my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions or comments for Mr. Tatfield? I will just say that I know when we opened up the Early Childhood Center and opened up the dedication for Dublin, I remember specifically asking the teachers about their new spaces, and they did say that the furniture was even very comfortable. Not only did it look nice, but it was extremely comfortable. So some direct feedback for you that I just wanted to know. It looks nice, but
It is functional, too.
it's
Right.
functional, exactly. Thank you so much. Next, we have the facility utilization study and our next steps. Dr. Bernia.
Yes, Madam President, I'm actually going to move over to the podium and walk you through a few slides of some information. All right. Thank you very much, especially the tech crew. Got me all squared away. You should all know that this started as a paper memo. What you saw on the screen before you saw the slides, that is Dr. Bernia's version of an effective communication tool. Mrs. Sovol felt we should do slides, and she was right. The record will, put that in the minutes. The record will reflect that you were right. Last January, the Board of Education approved the district to engage with Plant Moran Cressa to conduct a facility study. This process took place in the first quarter of the year. The district had previously worked with PMC on these studies in 2011 and 2018. As we've said all along, for a large district like Walled Lake, a facility study formally every 5 to 7 years is a best practice in our industry to make sure that we're using our space efficiently and to make sure that we are being responsible with our funds. So the Plant Moran Cressa's analysis of district demographics, enrollment trend, and the birth rate for Oakland County revealed a few key points. The population living in our district is aging. The average age of a resident in our community is 52.8 years old. That is up from their 2018 study. That's up from their 2011 study. They project forward that that will continue to increase. So what that means is that by and large, people who have moved here a long time ago that had children that went through our schools are staying in their homes. As the population ages to that point, there are fewer school-age children living in the district. On average, there are 0.46 students per household in our district. That number was over 1 in 2011 when you did this study. So that's how that number has declined. The trend of an aging population with fewer children is projected to continue. If you recall, Plant Moran projected that 5 years from now, the district would level off at about an enrollment of about 11,500. So that was their best estimate. So as part of their review, and they shared this with you in June, they review our facilities and determine efficiency rates. In 5 years, they indicate our efficiency rates by level. You see them there. Elementary, about 81%, middle school, 51%, and high school, 45%. So what that means is that we have some work to do and we have some strategic planning that we need to do and we need to engage the community. I think it's important to remember, in 2011 when you did this, the district had just gone through a catastrophic budget cut. So the purpose of that study was to make reductions as fast as possible. In 2018, you still weren't completely out of the woods financially. Right now, we're in a healthier position, so we do have the gift of time to be selective and to be thoughtful about how we do this. And in addition to that, what's a little different this time is that in this instance, we can think about some programmatic things as we think about how to be more efficient with our footprint. So based on these projections, the district must develop a strategy to make our buildings more efficient. We have a history of bringing stakeholders together as a committee to think through next steps and strategize, and we intend to use that process. We'll continue to work with Plant Moran Cressa. We will have facilitated meetings for a committee. Committee will contain administrators, staff members, and parent representatives from every school, administrators, staff members, and parent representatives from special education, athletics, early childhood, and the arts. The committee will review the facility usage report, information about the condition of our facilities, and additional property owned by the district. The goal of this committee will be to develop recommendations about future facility use for the district in an effort to make our facilities more efficient as our student population declines. The goal of the committee will be to finish this next phase of their work in time for a recommendation to the board at your first meeting of December. So that is going to be our goal, and that's what we're going to work on. Additional factors for consideration. Oh, this is the part, when I get to this slide, I've shared this information with our leaders. It's been shared with the board. I've shared this with our staff. This is the part of the presentation where everybody begins doing the drum roll, speculating that I'm going to say, and Central's closing next week. That's not what I'm here to say. We have the gift of time, and I think there are some strategies that we can employ, and I think we can be thoughtful. I do think that we can maintain 3 high schools through this, but we just have to be thoughtful, and we just have to work together on how we make that happen. So we also are going to have to consider some additional factors. Number one, the current financial reality of the district, which is relatively stable at this point. We don't know where we're going to be. It's an election year next year. We don't know where we'll be in Michigan after 2024, but currently we remain pretty stable. There is the possibility of universal pre-K. That was something the governor talked a lot about leading up to the budget, and then it wasn't in the budget when it came out. So the state of Michigan continues to toy around with universal pre-K. Well, if universal pre-K comes online, that's a lot of classrooms that you're going to need across the elementary, because those are going to come with smaller class sizes, and there's going to become a need for additional space. So the possibility of universal pre-K is something we'll have to contend with. And then there's also possible housing developments in our district. I'm plugged into and listening for some of those details and paying attention to them. So we have to stay up to speed on that, because we need to make sure that we know what our municipalities are doing as it relates to that. So we'll have to consider all those factors too. Having said that, housing developments, universal pre-K, those would be exciting developments for the district. Certainly, at the same time that we still wrestle with the birth rate in Michigan is the lowest it's been since prior to the baby boom. And so when you have a birth rate across the state that's as low as it was in 1940, then you have to recognize that there are going to be fewer children statewide, not just in Walled Lake, and we're going to have to contend with that. The baby boom certainly expanded school districts, but we're also now in a period of contraction that we're going to have to take into consideration. So I'll take any questions from the board if you have them. Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Just go back, I forgot to bring this up to you during the week, but on the
That's okay.
committees,
Yes.
definitely would like to see you be able to add the CTE and the vocational
Yeah.
into that general overall committee.
Yeah, and I think that there are some opportunities there, Mr. Peterson, some things that we've talked about offline, and I think that there are some programmatic things that I think the committee might want to consider, especially as we start to think about the footprint of our high schools, because some, and I know you can appreciate this, career technical education does not necessarily fit into classroom space the way that 9th grade English does. And so that, by removing teaching stations because you need more space for some of those programs, you make your buildings more efficient, plus you open up opportunities for students. That's good feedback. We'll add that.
Mr. Siegler?
When we did this initially, it was great feedback because the recommendations came to the board. The board did not make the recommendations. And our template, when we did do this, I received a lot of feedback from different districts in the state. Why? I said, because it's not something the board should do. The district needs to be totally involved in helping to design what's going forward. Now this has become a template for a lot of states and a lot of other areas, a lot of other districts throughout the country. And, you know, one of the things that we had talked about when we did this, we realized one area we might have missed was part of the senior community and having some senior input, so if we might want to add that into it also.
Sure, that's not a problem.
Any other comments or questions for Dr. Bernier? Sure, Mrs. Levin.
I guess to kind of expand on what Mr. Siegler suggested, you know, the senior community is certainly important, as is any community demographic that doesn't have children in the school, whether they're seniors, young people. I'm interested to know, and I just thought of this, so I apologize for not asking it sooner, how will the committee members be chosen?
So historically, what we've done and what I've seen done in other districts that I've worked in is that is a recommendation that comes to us from the schools, right? So our principals know their school community a lot better than we do, and so we entertain recommendations from them. So that is the next step in our process, is to roll this out to our administrators starting tomorrow, to have them start making recommendations to us about who to involve, and then we take a look. And then we take a look and see, okay, here's our recommendations, and we try our best to say, is everybody represented here, right? So there's someone with children at more than one level. You know, there's someone that's been in the system for a long time. There's people who are new to the system. So that's really that's the process we go through to try to create the committee.
Any other questions, comments? Mrs. Kaplan?
I'm just going to make one comment, since I did this last time.
Yeah.
With the district. I can tell you by what you said that the administrators will say who's, you know, good in the school. There's a lot of times that nobody volunteers, nobody agrees to do it. So it's a sign-up sheet, you know, somebody from the school, please be on this committee. So it's not just, it's compounded to PTA. It's open to all the community members and all the people in the school. And a lot of times that's how it plays out, that there's notes that go home to each school saying, please, we need a parent that's willing to spend this much time doing this, and that's how that works.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Bernier.
Thank you.
So while Dr. Bernier is coming back, we're going to move on to public commentary. Mrs. Levin will time for us. She will let us know if anybody is getting close to their 3 minutes. That is the time limit that you'll have. We'll ask you to come up one at a time and speak here at the podium. We ask that if you are close to the 3 minutes, if you could just finish up your thoughts if you're given that, hey, time, we appreciate that. Also, I'm going to ask that we continue to have respect up here. We know that we're going to have potentially different opinions. That's okay. If we could make sure that we're respectful to each other and that we refrain from personal attacks. And if somebody does need to get back to you, we will try to do so in a very timely manner. It really depends how many items we have to follow up on, but somebody from administration or from the board will follow up if needed. And we thank you tonight for speaking. Our first person is Corey Hensley.
Good evening. My name is Corey Hensley. I am president of the Special Services Parent Advisory Committee. For those of you that don't know, we are a group of parents whose mission is to inform, advise, and educate parents regarding special education. We work closely with administrators and also Mrs. Muir, who is our new superintendent of special services. We work together to carry out meetings and events relative to what parents are looking for. Last week, Wednesday, our PAC held its first back-to-school resource fair. We invited special education program staff, so staff members in the district, as well as community organizations, and I think we had a great turnout. I personally am here to thank Dr. Bernier for supporting our program and its mission. Your videos and messages to staff and families help tremendously, so thank you for that. Thank you to Dan Durkin and your staff for your efforts in promoting our event. You and your staff are much more tech savvy than I am, and I know your reach is far more than mine, so thank you. Thank you to Dr. Lons, your help in coordinating with the Oakland County Sheriff's Office to have officers on hand that could interact with children and families at the event. I also want to thank Special Services Program staff, so our staff members that are in the buildings that came out not only to support the event, but also your dedication and service to our population. It was great to have the range from early childhood all the way up to our adult transitions programs. It was nice to have them on hand speaking to parents. I appreciate seeing the large number of administrators, principals, cabinet that was in attendance, board members. Thank you for being there. Whether it was out of interest or to promote the event, I hope that you learned about special education and will continue to support our large group. We are a very large group in this district. And I hope you walked away with a bag full of freebies, as that seemed to be the big hit of the evening, all the freebies. I know my kids enjoyed it. I cannot thank my executive board and volunteers enough for your time in helping to set up, execute, clean up afterwards, especially members in the Special Services office. I appreciate their help. And a shout out to my husband who made the hot dogs and handed those out to family and staff as well. Our PAC could not have pulled off this event without the countless time and energy that Ms. Muir provided. We spent a lot of hours on the phone, and so I appreciate your time. Your effort and enthusiasm helped make it a success, so thank you. I look forward to working with you all this year and for your continued support in special education. Thank you.
Randy Freed.
Hi, good evening. I am the parent of 3 children in the district, a 4th grader, a 10th grader, and a 12th grader. And I'm speaking tonight because that while I recognize there was an apology given at the last meeting, it didn't seem to quite fit the damage that was done. On June 8th, my daughter and her friend both spoke at the board meeting. So when I heard that a video of a student was being used as propaganda at a Tea Party meeting, I knew it was one of them. It turned out to be my daughter's friend, but as a mom, that did not make me feel better. I don't understand how a group that says they are trying to protect our children exploited one of them. What makes me even more upset was that a board member was there and did not try to stop it. We need to honor and protect every child every day, not just those that we agree with. We can disagree, but we still must respect people. We cannot choose who another person is, so when they tell us, we must respect that, even when it is different than you may believe. Religion is not taught in the public schools, so while we can respect and learn about other cultures, we can't teach based on religion. Thank you.
Carl Chappell.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. First of all, I apologize. I've been using all 3 of my names together. I forgot to put Gretzinger on the end.
Oh.
So it's real Carl Chappell Gretzinger. Chappell was my mother's maiden name.
Gretzer, okay.
But I had 3 topics. The first 2 are questions. And number 1 is to ask whether or not the Walden Consolidated Schools have bathroom facilities for transgender students. That's my question.
Okay, we won't interact with you here, but we will get back with you. Thank you.
Okay, and then the second question was whether or not the Walled Lake Consolidated School District has a policy regarding transgender female students playing on sports teams that historically have been reserved for non-transgender female students. Those are my 2 questions. The third part of my thoughts, as I read through it, I have the topic wrong and it needs some polish. So if I can come back next week, I'd appreciate that. Or next month, next meeting. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Alana Rugg.
Ilona Rugg, retired public school teacher. Let's hear it for our public school teachers. Our tireless job of preparing children to be productive, responsible, intelligent citizens of society to build future careers, not future queers. Yet here we come again and again to board meetings to spend an hour to talk about how great we are, to comfort, coddle, and wipe the noses of children that are not being called by their personal pronoun. It should not be an accolade for a child to say they're gay, but you promote it instead of getting them psychological help. The majority, that's right, 50% plus one,
I'm sorry,
do not
just
want
one
you
second.
to promote sodomy. We do not have to agree, promote, or celebrate it in any way or form, nor should an adult be told by a child, an irresponsible, not fully developed child, how they should accept and celebrate these ludicrous fads. You know, we had a dress code in school. We enforced, which we never enforced. Boys couldn't have earrings, long hair. Girls couldn't wear too short skirts or crop shirts. Now kids are allowed to express themselves, discover who they are, that their gender is interchangeable. Let the children be children and not push all of these stressful, sick ideologies you are pushing on them. If you want to be gay, if you're an adult, knock your lights out, but don't put it in the face of our children. Anything other than core subjects is the job of the parent. The core unit which determines the strength of any society is the family. You rip the moral fabric of the country when you destroy its family unit. Children will turn on their parents. To the conservative school board members we elected, we say thank you for standing up. Please don't give up on us, the majority that appreciate you sticking to your beliefs. To the parents, mama bears that are too scared to speak up, don't be afraid to protect your baby bears. The more tolerant we become of sinful behavior, the more intolerant we become of Christians. That is how we got here in the first place. You shouldn't be afraid of government. Government should be afraid of us. Any parents that are going along with this insanity should be jailed for child abuse. And to all the teachers
30 seconds.
and those listening right now who are too afraid to stand up and say something, if you're not standing against those committing the sin, then you are participants in it. Too often you make yourself sheep and the wolves will eat you. Stand up, even if you are standing alone. Parents listening, take it from a public school teacher. Get your children out of public school. To the leftist school board members, keep speaking out your mind because you have awoken the beast, and we are coming to take our kids back.
Time.
What you're pushing on our kids is evil, sadistic, and wrong.
Please
And
finish
you
your
owe
thoughts.
us,
Thank
the
you.
community, an apology. God bless.
Hal Wolf. Hal Wolf.
Good evening, everyone. Excuse me. I want to talk a little bit about one of the topics you guys discussed and agreed upon in your workshop last meeting, which I sat here and watched it, and I thought it was very productive and time well spent. One of the things you came up with is to increase the academic proficiency of the students. And I can't agree with that more. And I guess the way to measure that is your test scores, you know, your reading, math, etc. To that end, I would encourage you to, while you're going through this process, to investigate why there was a decline in those numbers to begin with. I think that'd be positive to do. Think about what, if anything, changed as those numbers started to go down. I would urge you not to use the events of the past few years as the primary reason for these test score reductions. I don't think that's valid. I think those test scores were going down initially. Another question you might have is, what was the main cause? Were it the teachers? From what I hear in this room, no. Everybody thinks we have a great bunch of teachers. So if it's not the teachers, it must be the curriculum, what changed in the curriculum. I would definitely look into that. That being said, I remember hearing this said a couple of times, at least in these meetings. Leave it to the professionals. That has been done, either intently or tacitly. We've let you guys set the curriculum, do whatever. My question is, how'd that work? Maybe not so good.
30 seconds.
And that's all I really have to say. I do commend you for what you're trying to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Sandy Douse.
Good evening. I'd like to see more business accomplished by refraining from constant focus on controversial issues, except where they relate to curriculum that many parents disapprove of or may be unaware of. Parents, guardians, and taxpayers' input should be carefully considered when neutral, academically excellent materials can be used. Let's face it, we can't teach everything. Why not focus on shared values wherever possible? Can we agree that we can learn to read better if we avoid obviously contentious content? A for apple, not abortion. T for turtle instead of trans or Trump. I'd like to see the board and the staff members, including past members and students, stop using this public comment time as a platform for personal agendas unrelated to curriculum or school business. Every meeting, the overhead says no personal attacks. Simply deleting the names doesn't accomplish this. For example, the lady with the yellow pants clearly identifies someone while not using a name or office. I request the chair to interrupt any obviously personal attacks on new members or anyone in future meetings, but not on issues that relate to the district. Thank you.
I know it's Paul, the last name I'm having a hard time, because, what is it? Carlisle, okay, sorry, it was just some of the letters are running together, thank you.
Yeah, I tend to do that.
Thank
So
you.
I gotta say, my son started school, excellent. We had the most incredible communication from everybody. I can't say enough how good his entrance was back in. He's good, starting middle school, great job. We got communication from the teachers, the principal, everybody. I mean, he's coming back glowing every day, and he hasn't done that in a long time. I don't know what you guys done and changed, but I'm very impressed with what you guys have done. The communication is outstanding. And I'll tell you what, the schools, what an amazing job. Western, even, I go there every day now with my son swimming, but I can't believe with all the construction you got going on there, that school still looks phenomenal. And all the schools are looking very good, and I'm very pleased with what's going on. And I really liked that meeting you guys had the other day, and I hope that you guys can continue to do something to work together to make a good school. And so far, great job. I can't thank enough.
Michael Wise. Michael Wise.
Michael Wise, Commerce Township. I want to talk about book banning tonight. Every individual has the right to make decisions about what materials are suitable for themselves. No one and no racist, religious, conservative group has the right to make rules restricting what other people read. This vital American freedom of speech, must be protected. Certain individuals do not believe this freedom must be protected. In communities across Michigan, there has been an unprecedented uptick at schools and public libraries to ban books. There are several conservatives that routinely appear at these board meetings, spewing misinformation with their weak-minded ideas and presenting lists of books they want to ban. The National Public Opinion Poll, a national public opinion poll, shows 75% of American voters, Democrats, Independents, and Republicans, oppose book banning. A very small racist, religious, conservative minority, 8%, believe there are many books that should be banned. Libraries fill a central role in supporting the rights of citizens to read, to seek information, and to speak freely. These rights are guaranteed by the First Amendment, the freedom of speech. Librarians are highly educated public servants who work to provide for the interests of all, and to do so without bias. Libraries uphold the constitutional promise of access to information for everyone. All ages, abilities, races, nationalities, religions, the rich, poor, non-traditional families, those who identify as LGBTQ, and those that don't. Michigan librarians have been threatened by Trump conservatives with violence and intimidation. Cities like Hillsdale have lost librarians over harassment because of extremist, racist, religious, conservative rhetoric about library collections. The suggestion that a librarian be fired or held personally accountable when someone is offended by the contents of a book is not only harmful to the librarian, but potentially destabilizes the institution and negatively impacts the whole community. Would your community be better without your library? This is what is at stake. Libraries are centers for learning and self-discovery. Libraries offer so much to everyone at no cost at the point of service. They contribute to the health and vitality of communities throughout Michigan. Banning books drives away library staff, is short-sighted, punishes irreparably the entire community, which counts on the free access to programs and services the library provides. When we support representation on the shelves of the library, we aren't undermining anyone, but supporting all. Banning books denies readers access to stories in which they can see themselves and silences the voices of marginalized populations. We need to stand strong in defending all libraries, these valuable and irreplaceable institutions, by upholding First Amendment
30
rights.
seconds.
The freedom of speech enshrined in the Constitution. We must guarantee access to all expressions of knowledge and intellectual activity, including those that some individuals and people in our society may consider to be unconventional, unpopular, or unacceptable. We can't let narrow-minded, racist, fascist, religious zealots damage our Michigan school and public libraries. Efforts to both censor materials and undermine public faith in libraries and library professionals not only present a dangerous threat to library funding, but candidates using extremist rhetoric about library services and collections also pose a real threat to the freedom to read. Thanks to those open-minded board members that understand the concepts of diversity, equality, and inclusion. Thank you.
Tim Sawmiller. Tim Sawmiller.
Good evening. Tim Sawmiller, Commerce Township. I'm a cisgender male using pronouns he, him, and his.
If we could
I
just
do
let
not-
people speak, I would really appreciate it. Thank you.
I do not know how this school board defines the term personal attack, but the generally accepted definition of a personal attack is the making of an abusive remark about or relating to one's person or personality, instead of providing evidence when examining that person's claims or comments or actions. In debate circles, this is a logical fallacy, one that demeans a person instead of refuting their argument. Therefore, it is still valid to criticize a board member's actions or words. At the last meeting, Ms. Tice offered an explanation and apology for her remarks at the June meeting of the Oakland County Tea Party. I appreciate her efforts, but in doing so, she said something almost as troubling. She stated that her board actions and decisions are based on her faith, not politics. I commend her for living a faith-based life. However, that statement alone, that decisions are guided by faith, is disqualifying. Walled Lake schools are public schools. They are secular, not religious. One's faith should not be a factor in public school board decisions. It's essentially unconstitutional. In McCollum v. Board of Education, the U.S. Supreme Court pointed out that public schools are at once the symbol of our democracy and the most pervasive means for promoting our common destiny. They should be welcoming and nurturing places for students and families of all faiths and all beliefs. Religious freedom in public schools can exist only if school officials maintain a religiously neutral environment. Please keep this in mind during future deliberations. Turning to the subject of books in libraries, Stephen King writes, "Book banners insist that the entire community should see things their way and only their way. When a book is banned, a whole set of thoughts is locked behind the assertion that there is only one valid set of values, one valid set of beliefs, one valid perception of the world. It's a scary idea, especially in a society which is built on the idea of free choice and free thought." Indeed. In the 1982 Supreme Court ruling on Board of Education versus PICO, Justice William Brennan wrote that taking books off library shelves could violate students' First Amendment rights adding that local school boards may not remove books from school libraries simply because they dislike the ideas contained in
30
those
seconds.
books. Book banning is a weak response to ideas that scare some people. Are the people banning books the same ones that yell from the rooftops that there should be less government involvement in decision-making, and yet they want to ban books for others without giving those people a chance to choose for themselves? Banning books is not about protecting children. It's about discrimination against others. Remember, in the entirety of human history, book banners have never been the good guys. Thank you.
Heather Martinez. Heather Martinez.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Heather Martinez, and I identify by the pronouns she, her, and hers, and I respect the right of everyone to choose their own. I am also a retired public school teacher and special education administrator. However, I believe that our school teachers in this district go above and beyond to take care of our kids no matter what, in the same way that I did when I was teaching, because that's what we're supposed to do as teachers. We are helping to raise the future society members that are going to be amongst us and be here with us on school boards, in political forums, as parents raising their own children. I want to speak today as a very proud mama bear about how I have raised my kids to advocate for themselves and for others, just as so many of our teachers and administrators do here in Walled Lake Consolidated Schools. There's nothing more important than teaching our kids how to be humane, empathetic, and generous, and give grace to others around us. We are raising citizens that will make a difference in this world, not people who are using slurs to describe others, not people who are narrow-minded and refuse to understand the basis of public education. No school teacher should ever use slurs. No school teacher should ever describe students in a way that was done this evening. No parent should ever have to think that they are being accused of child abuse for standing up for their children's rights. When I heard what I heard earlier tonight, I thought about how I spent my day today, which was with Representatives Debbie Dingell and John James, talking about the importance of mental health supports. Our school district does a great job at doing that, but it's not enough. We need more mental health supports for our students. We have to have more. Our social workers, we don't have enough. Our counselors, we don't have enough. Our students are facing times that are like none other before. So please, I implore you as a school board and a superintendent to look into what we can do to increase those mental health support services for all students, whether they are white, black, purple, gray, red, trans, bi, female, male, whatever they choose to be, they deserve to be supported.
Christine Titus.
Hi, good evening. I'm Christine Titus. I am an instructional specialist at Hickory Woods Elementary. Thank you, Mr. Chatfield, for a beautiful new building and classrooms, and board as well, Dr. Bernia. I'm also a 31-year resident of Commerce Township, so happy to have been in this district for so long. But tonight I'd like to offer a series of thank yous to some folks that might not hear those words often enough. I'd like to thank Mrs. Kohansky and her Learning Services team, particularly Jennifer Lacrosse, Andrea Abrams, and especially Michelle Black and Ellen McDonald. I'm sure there's more I'm failing to mention, but I wanted to shout out particularly to these educators. They support our teaching staff with our core curriculum and professional development. And I don't mean just from the central office. They are on the ground right alongside us, modeling, demonstrating, and even teaching our students. The term role models doesn't even begin to describe what they do in our district for our K-12 learners. I'd also like to acknowledge Kelly Iverson, our English Language Development Coordinator. She and her staff help support some of our most vulnerable learners, those that are adding English to their repertoire of languages. And I just don't mean it as a second language, because what we're discovering is that a lot of our MLLs might speak more than one language at home. English just happens to be one that they're learning now. She and our district are also supporting a small group of educators, myself included, from junior kindergarten through 12th grade, who are completing our coursework towards an ESL endorsement on our teaching certificates. We are already supporting our MLLs with the skills we've gained over the last almost year and a half. A few of our cohorts supported students this summer during summer school, and one was recently put into the position of an ELD teacher in one of our elementary buildings. The skills we've learned are invaluable not only to our MLLs, but to just good teaching practice. So finally, I'd like to thank all those folks, but finally I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to publicly view these meetings and to let the public make comments. Thank you so much.
Paula Samal.
Good evening. I'm Paula Samal, teacher in Walled Lake Schools. I'm wearing this shirt today, partially to remind myself because my notes are bad, but what I wanted to speak about today. So on the front of this shirt, it says, "Make school board meetings boring again." And on the back, it says, "I support students." So I'm going to talk about students first. So I was quite dismayed and really honestly devastated when I saw the video from the Lakes area Tea Party movement from their meeting, because in that video was one of my students. A student that I know to be a great person, a great student, the kind of kid that anybody wants in their classroom. Smart, works hard, kind, respectful, and adults were sitting here judging this kid. So first, I'm asking this community and for the school board to lead this community that we treat kids differently. We don't treat them like adults. We, adults, have created a political system that we're not being kind to each other, we're not being respectful to each other, but at least we're adults. Give our kids the opportunity to grow. Leave them out of it, please. Now the boring part. Boring sounds like a bad word. My car is boring, which means it works, right? And I'm asking the school board to lead us back to boredom. These meetings, I mean, there's emotions on all sides. People are throwing words around, people have to be removed, and we're forgetting why we're here, which is the children. Now, our school board plays a role in this. There are certain laws made by the federal government, certain laws made by the state government, and there's this little sliver of stuff that the board can do. And a lot of what we've been discussing here is not what the board is to do. And if we stick within these rules and apply
30 seconds.
Our political process to the other people that are dealing with this at the legislature, at the federal level, we can resume a peaceful environment here and a good environment for our students. Thank you very much.
Katie Bardos.
Okay, so I might be shaking because that was a lot, but it's not because I'm nervous. Okay, to start, My name is Katie Bardos. I've been in the district for 15 years. I have a daughter that's a freshman at Florida International University in Miami. I have a son that's a junior at Walled Lake Northern. My newest endeavors are volunteering my time with the musicals and plays, and I'm in charge of the sets, pieces, and the props, and I thoroughly enjoy it. That being said, when I got to Walnut Creek, there wasn't a music or performance person there. And I set out to make sure that this was going to happen. I wanted a talent show like we had at Glengarry. I wanted the Carla Caldwell that we had at Glengarry. I wanted all of that. That happened. That happened for 2 years. It was phenomenal. And as you know, in this district, I seriously think the performing arts is one of the absolute best things that we have going for us. But we have failed the performing arts because we have gaps throughout the district. We're sharing teachers. You can't build a rapport. You can't build a group. You need an orchestra teacher, a band teacher. You need the choir teacher because there's not enough time to share that. And these kids, great as the sports is, that's phenomenal. I was a tennis player. I mean, phenomenal. I know teams are great. But there's a team spirit. Not everybody's on sports. So this is an outlet for other kids to do things. They work as a family. We've been uniting all the schools together, supporting everybody. But the problem and what I need you to fix is 2 things. 1, performing arts person at every level and not sharing. Secondly, I really need a warehouse or a facility with your little thing that I would love to be on the committee for, to store all of our props, all of our scenes. It's harder and harder to get these older things, and I don't want to throw them away. So I have it inventoried in my head, but it would be great if I could inventory it for all the schools in one building, and then we can rent it out, and our schools can use it. It's going to save us money because we're not recreating, and those dumpsters make me, I load up my car and then load up Paul's house with the junk, so until I can put it back in the building. So anyways, please, please, I know we've worked on, special ed is going better. The shit show, the 3-ring circus is still a work in progress, but now can we please focus on what I really, really want? Thank you.
We're going to move on to administrative commentary. Dr. Bernia.
Tonight we're going to open with Mr. Chatfield. Ms. Muir.
Nothing today.
Mrs. Kohansky.
I have nothing tonight. Thanks, Dr. Bernia.
Mr. Durkin.
Nothing for me this evening, Dr. Bernia.
And Dr. Lons.
Clean sweep.
I think they just yielded all their time to me. So I just have a couple. First, Mr. Gritzinger and Ms. Dowse, you didn't put your numbers on the cards. So if you can just see me right after the meeting so we can make sure, because I owe you a phone call, I just don't have your number, okay? So just see me right after and we'll get that information from you. We are off to just a tremendous start. I was in a lot of buildings last week and seeing the energy and enthusiasm of our students that have come back and our new students and our veteran staff and our new staff, it's contagious. I took in the football game at Northern last week where Northern and Central played, and it was really a lot of fun. The marching band, the athletes, it was all tremendous. So I really want to compliment everybody for such a strong start to the school year. A strong start to the school year comes from leadership. And so I want to thank our leaders, my cabinet, our building administrators, our division leaders, our department leaders. They really set the table nicely for our staff and our students to come back, and I really appreciate their hard work. And my very last point is there's a group of employees that I want to highlight tonight, and that is our student service staff. These are the folks that are front-facing, that register all of our new students that come into the district. You'll be interested to know since March, they have registered more than 1,000 students. And that's 1,000 individual meetings with families and bringing them into our building and talking with them and making sure that they're all set. They do it with warmth and empathy and caring and kindness. They worked Saturdays and Sundays beginning in March. So they've worked at least one weekend day from March until now. And so I'm so grateful for their hard work, because that is the first encounter with Walled Lake is those staff members, and I'm so grateful for their hard work. So that's it for me, Madam President.
Thank you. We're going to go to board commentary. I'm going to start with Mrs. Fernandez, if you have anything this evening.
Yeah, I want to echo the excitement on the back-to-school season, and also just reassure folks that there's also that same excitement and energy across the board. And, we really, I think, have adopted a fresh look and a focus, and thank you to the community members who have taken notice of that. Just want to reiterate the challenge to folks to match our energy and bring substantive communications and substantive topics to us as we focus on things like security, or things like teachers, or things like academic performance and measures. And we're looking for that feedback, and Dr. Bernia presents information about the bond from Mr. Chatfield. There's a lot of cool stuff to talk about. So, please share your thoughts and concerns with us, and match our energy there. Looking forward to that.
Mr. Siegler?
You'll find out during the course of the year that I will give you a lot of legislative updates or feedback or thoughts from Lansing. And our friends in Lansing are off and running. It's interesting that they're already looking at the last day of possibly being November 9th, of the last day of the session, if not in October. So we've got a lot of work to do if we need to, if we have issues or concerns. But some of the things that they've already signed into law this year, third grade reading initiatives and revisions, income tax changes, sinking funds for school buses. For years, that's come out of the general fund. Now we will hopefully be able to use sinking funds. I know that Mrs. Casagrande, in her early days as a PTA president, was very involved with that. One of the things that they've also done that I can't say is going to be beneficial is Public Employee Relations Act. Basically, they're changing some of the things that we do with our contracts and going back to 2011 guidelines and that. But we'll wait and see how that happens, since we're blessed to have a 2-year contract here. Some of the other things that are happening that we can keep an eye on, or wait to hear on, as Dr. Bernia said, universal pre-K. It's not a pipe dream. It could be a reality very soon. One of the things they're looking at is mandatory dental screening for children entering kindergarten. Fortunately, that did not get put into place this year, because it would have caused utter chaos for registering students at the beginning of the school year. But I would not be surprised if we do not see that for the 24-25 school year. And that would have to be tied into the kindergarten roundup and everything else. Other things that are out there right now, mandatory kindergarten. Mr. Peterson, one of the things that you will be happy to hear is House Bill 4279, which is the CTE millage for signing a contract and working with other ISDs and other CTE programs to have them combined, or better utilization of those. Substitute teacher requirements. We all need that to be revised. And then removing the ban on starting the school day before Labor Day. Again, that is up there and up for discussion. As we start the year, we're off to a running start. The energy in the PTA meetings, the energy in the teacher orientations and everything else is great. We have the pink outs coming. We have the Leia coming out with, I'll leave that for Mrs. Kaplan so she can sell the tickets. But, we're here for the community. We're here for the students. And, we as a board are trying to break bread a little bit more, take down some of the barriers, and diffuse some of our issues. And as it was alluded to by some members of the audience, we all have to do that. So thank you.
Ms. Tice?
Yeah, so back to school is a super exciting time, but I know it can also be a very exhausting time as teachers are just getting back into the swing of things and trying to establish routines and procedures with their students, and especially after they've been on summer break for a couple months. So just want to commend all the teachers for all their hard work getting back into the swing of a new school year. I also had the privilege to be able to visit the resource fair last week that Corey was telling you guys all about. And so I also just want to commend her and just all the special service teams for all that they did to put the resource fair together. It was very well done, and I think it just gave parents an opportunity to just be able to talk to some different people and just get some different ideas and supports for their students. So thank you, Corey, and all the special service teams for your work there.
Mr. Peterson, anything today?
A couple of things. I want to thank Ms. Hensley and Mr. Muir for that great event PAC put on last Wednesday. It was exciting. I've done several of these now. It's exciting to see a lot more people come out in support from the standpoint of within the community and programs that are available. Still love to see more of our special needs community come out to these events. I think they would be surprised at how willing and how able they are to give you all kinds of support under all kinds of situations. So that was great. I really want to go back and I want to thank the state of Michigan legislature and our governor. I think we've talked about it a little bit, but kind of overlooked it, especially if you have kids in the school district right now, to the free meals program. I don't know. I know when I was a dad with a couple of young kids, and either they didn't want to eat in school, or you had to have $5 for them for lunch the next 2 days. That's a huge difference. They were out at Dublin here a little over a week ago, and unfortunately, the Wall Lake school system didn't get that much publicity from that, but they talked about this White Lake school where they visited. But I think that's really a great testament to the state of Michigan. This doesn't happen very often, guys. This doesn't happen very often. So take it for what it is. It's very important. And when you go and look forward at future legislatures, keep that in mind. So thank you.
Mrs. Levin.
So I too have, heard a lot of great feedback about the school year getting started. Parents reach out to me all the time, and they've shared some great feedback. I've heard from parents who have a renewed sense of peace with the IEP meetings that they've been having to start the school year. I shared this with Ms. Muir before our meeting that, there was a parent I talked to who was crying tears of happiness that she felt like her child was going to have a real chance now this year that maybe didn't exist before, because there's been just some more understanding with their IEP and the different plans. So that kind of thing has been fantastic to hear. Teachers are making a point to establish partnerships with parents. Not that they haven't before, but it's been an active participation, an active request for parents to be involved. We rely on our teachers for a lot, but parents need to support. You can't just send your kid to school and count on the teachers to do everything. Parents need to be reading with their kids, even right now. Reading with their kids at night, establishing rules, making sure homework is getting done, making sure kids are being respectful, because we are really all partners in our child's education. The football team honoring the troops was really awesome. It was a little earlier this year, but I unfortunately couldn't make it to the game because I was working late, but I saw the Coast Guard helicopter over my house, and that was pretty cool. So, a great way to honor people who have sacrificed so much for our country. There's even the kids who were nervous to go to school that first day, who now, after, just a few days in school, are excited to go to school. And, they might be exhausted, but they're excited to go. And that's really a testament to the staff, the teachers, the parents, for really making education, an important cornerstone in a child's life. And so that's fantastic. Dr. Bernia has been amazingly responsive to parents. I always encourage people to follow the chain of command. People come to me with, this, that, and the other thing. I say, start here, talk to the principal, whatever. But when people are running into roadblocks, they reach out to Dr. Bernia, and it's amazing how responsive he is. And so we're very lucky to have him and his team and his leadership here. And as Mr. Peterson mentioned, the free meals has been a game changer. Dr. Bernia was just mentioning to us before we came in here that there are serving double the meals now in food service. So, hats off to all the people that work in the lunchrooms and the cafeterias at these schools. One thing that is important is even though the meals are free, make sure that you're turning in those free and reduced lunch forms. We probably need a different name for those at this point.
Educational benefit forms is what they
Okay, that's what they're called. Turn those in. If there's even a chance that you might qualify for some sort of reduction, it does more than just provide meals. It can provide discounts on SAT, whatever fees those are called. My kids aren't there yet. It can provide Title I funding. It can do all sorts of things. So fill out the forms, turn them in. It's not just about the free lunch that everybody's getting now or the free breakfast. It's about so much more. So please make sure you're turning those in, and continue to support your students, continue to support your teachers. Don't wait until the teacher is having a bad day to say thank you. Say thank you up front. Point out the good things. Everybody's human. Teachers are human too, even though when I was a kid, I used to think they lived in the closets at school. Say thank you early and often, because it is a thankless job sometimes, and everybody enjoys a pat on the back once in a while. Thank you.
Mrs. Kaplan?
Okay, I'm going to be quick. I just have a couple things. First, I just want to say on Saturday at Wild Lake Central, there's going to be the preview show, which is for the marching bands and other marching bands. It starts at 7 p.m. And if you have not seen a preview show or you haven't come to witness any of our marching bands, come to Central. You'll be totally impressed and amazed with what our students can do and what they do every day. So that's number one. Number two, you've all heard me say this 1,000 times. The 19th is the Lake Sarah Youth Assistance Taste of the Lakes. We are at Edgewood starting at 5 p.m. I really encourage you all to attend, and I'd love to see you all there. Right now, tickets are $25. At the door, they're $30. And hit me up if you want something. And other than that, I'm glad we're back to school, and go Lions, and let's move on.
Yeah, so Mr. Stigler, you sent me something today asking if anybody was going to behind the scenes at the Capitol for the board on September 13th. It's from like 8 to 1 in Lansing. I know I cannot personally attend. Is there anybody who's planning to attend? If not, just take a look at your schedules and know that that's going on. It looks like there was a pretty good agenda. And yeah, just let Dr. Bernie and Ms. Sobel know that you want to go. The other thing is, last time when we had our session together, we talked about wanting to do, some more of those. I'm hoping that we'll be able to do something again in the next couple of months. I know we have some conflicts with some schedules, so we'll start thinking about what we want those to look like. One of the things I wanted to throw out there, I know we said we wanted to communicate and talk about different items and how we want to approach board goals and district goals, et cetera. One thing that we've also talked about is using data to drive and make decisions. So there is a data foundations class. I had talked briefly with Dr. Bernie about it. We could take it separately. I know I've taken it as part of a data specialty certificate, but we also could, if you want to think about it, we don't have to talk about it now, but we could do it as a board if you wanted to take that foundational course and then have a session talking about data and how, et cetera. We don't have to do it that way, but we could. So just think about it and let me know. That was another thing that was kind of on my mind. And then I lastly just want to kind of talk about the PAC event. One of the things that I was impressed with is we had services there. We had students who were at some of the tables. We had our therapy dogs there. I had never been able to make one of those events, so thank you for continuing to do that. And I had heard, and Mr. Peterson, you talked about this a little bit, not having as many, parents or people who maybe needed some of those services there. And I think just, our continued diligence to let people know who the PAC is, what they're doing, and maybe people won't come all the time, but just knowing that it's there and anything we can do to continue to try to advertise that and talk about it, because maybe you don't know or that you need it now, but, eventually you might. So I appreciate all of the work that we're doing there in that area. Yeah, Mr. Siegler.
One other thing is we talked about the 3 meals. You know, we worked very hard in Washington when we were there in January. That was one of our goals, and, you know, we were fortunate to get there. This year, Washington will be January 28th through 30th. I don't know if anybody's even started to look at their calendars yet. I know I would not be able to go this year as I went last year, but it's something we might want to look at.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're now going to move on to the consent agenda. On the consent agenda, we have the approval of minutes from August 23rd, 2023, our regular meeting. We also have new hires and resignations. We have financial reports from both June and July. In June, the disbursements were $22,716,632. In July, they were $19,978,422.
Mrs. Kester.
Mrs. Levin.
I move that the Board of Education approve the consent agenda as presented.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Now we're going to move on to proclamation, Cancer Awareness Month, October. Dr. Bernia.
Madam President, the proclamation reads, whereas over the past several decades, our nation has made significant advances in the fight against cancer, improvements in early detection and treatment of this disease have led to decreases in the rates of new cases and deaths, and many people who are diagnosed with cancer are living longer with a better quality of life. Despite the breadth of our process, an estimated 1.8 million people were diagnosed with cancer last year, and more than half a million Americans lost their lives to the disease. During Cancer Awareness Month, October 2023, we renew our commitment to increasing awareness about cancer and reducing the burden of this devastating illness. And whereas staff, students, and parents of Walled Lake Consolidated School District have planned several cancer awareness activities throughout the months of September and October 2023, and whereas Walled Lake Western High School is holding its 12th annual Warriors for Warriors Pink Out football game, they are selling pink t-shirts with the proceeds going to 2 charities, St. Baldrick's Foundation for Pediatric Cancer and Angels of Hope Foundation, Michigan. This year's event is on Friday, October 13th. Additionally, Western is hosting the Volleyball Pink Out on October 3rd. Walled Lake Northern has 5 events planned the week of October 9th in honor of breast cancer awareness, with proceeds supporting the American Cancer Society. This year's events will be held at the October 9th boys soccer game, October 10th cross-country meet, October 12th volleyball game, October 12th swim meet, and October 13th football game, including cheer, dance, and marching band. Whereas there will be educational opportunities throughout September and October 2023 to talk to students about healthy habits to prevent cancer, such as avoiding excessive sun exposure, eating a balanced diet, maintaining a healthy weight, and making physical activity part of each day. And now therefore be it resolved that the Walled Lake Schools Board of Education, administration, staff, students, and parents together declare October 2023 Cancer Awareness Month in Walled Lake Schools.
Thank you. Next is our resolution installment purchase agreements. Dr. Bernia.
Mr. Chatfield.
Thank you, Dr. Bernia. The maintenance department utilizes a great deal of equipment to service and maintain the buildings and grounds of the district. Much of this equipment is old, inoperable, and in need of replacement. We recommend financing the replacement of this equipment through an installment purchase agreement, which requires approval of the Board of Education, and we have a resolution authorizing such an agreement for your consideration.
Mr. Siegler.
I move that the Board of Education authorize the superintendent and the director of operations, or either one acting individually as the authorized officer, to solicit, accept, and approve a proposal from a bank or other lender for the borrowing of funds to finance the purchase of maintenance equipment.
Any discussion? We had a lot of it outside of this. To Dr. Bernia, thank you for answering the questions for us, or probably Mr. Chatfield who did. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Designation of depositories for school funds. Dr. Bernia.
I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Lons.
Thank you, sir. Each year, the business office, under the direction of the Assistant Superintendent of Business Services or designee, reviews and updates the list of banks and financial institutions to engage with during the following school year. That list has been brought to the board for your approval.
Mrs. Kaplan.
I move that the Board of Education approve the banks, financial institutions, and brokerage firms as listed and presented as depositories for school funds for the 2023-24 fiscal year, and authorize the Assistant Superintendent of Business Services and/or designee to conduct all banking transactions.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. School investments, Dr. Bernia.
Right back to Dr. Lons.
Thank you, Dr. Bernia. Each year, the business office, under the direction of the Assistant Superintendent of Business Services, invests available funds as prescribed by the Michigan Revised School Code. Available funds are those not required for the immediate future to cover financial obligations. Examples include bond funds while projects are underway, property tax revenue received in the summer that will be spent throughout the year.
Mr. Siegler.
I move the Board of Education authorize the business office under the direction of the Assistant Superintendent of Business Services to invest school district monies as prescribed by the Michigan Revised School Code as presented.
Any discussion? Mrs. Levin.
Just one thing here. I noticed on this motion, it doesn't say Assistant Superintendent of Business Services or his or her designee. And since there isn't an Assistant Superintendent of Business Services, do we need to amend this motion to add that? Or is that implied somehow?
I think you're okay, but if you wanted to add designee, that's acceptable too. As it stands right now, it's me until we get this figured out.
So it's implied.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Adopt Lakes Area Youth Assistance Contract for Services. Dr. Bernia.
Once more to Dr. Lons.
Thank you. Lakes Area Youth Assistance Program offers services to youth and families, including summer camp counseling, family education, and summer playgrounds. The program is sponsored by cities of Walled Lake, Wixom, Commerce Township, Wolverine Lake Village, Oakland County Probate Court, and Walled Lake Schools. Administration recommends the continued support of this program.
Mrs. Kaplan.
I move that the Board of Education approve a district cash contribution to Lakes Area Youth Assistance of $5,700 and an in-kind contribution of office space, telephone, and postage costs for the 2023-24 fiscal year, and further, that the superintendent is authorized to execute the Lakes Area Youth Assistance contract for the 2023-24 services as presented.
Any discussion?
Mrs. Casagrande?
Yes.
One question with regards to the motion. Leah is being charged currently for postage. I had a long discussion with Ms. Less about this at the end of last year, and we got a bill for the year, and she said that's what will continue going forward. And here it says that you're covering postage. Which way are we going?
Well, I did not realize that this was a question that was going to come to us. But I think this year we will accept the postage costs, and so that going forward for this year, I really hope Mrs. Less is not watching, because if she is, she just threw something at her screen.
Well, Dr. Bernie, I can take you off the hook because we have already voted at Leah that we are covering the cost this year because of the conversation I had with Ms. Less. So that we just would have to amend the motion to remove the postage costs for this school year, if that's.
I think you were just told that he's going to pay the postage costs.
Okay, I'm just trying to get him off the hook, but that's
That's okay.
okay.
It's
That's
okay.
okay, that's fine, yep. We accepted it,
Any
Leah,
other
thank you.
discussion? All right, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Board Policy Regulations Update 2000 AR. Dr. Bernia.
Thank you, Madam President. As the community saw last month, we updated and published our administrative regulations. As part of that process, we went back and revisited some of our forms, one of them being the student field trip form. This doesn't require your vote, as it is an administrative regulation, but this is us notifying you that we have updated that form and updated our regulations as such.
Thank you. And next we have board policy discussion. So we know that we have some outstanding items that we need to look at, some updates, and then we know that we also have some additional areas that board members want to take a look at. In the recent past, we used to have a policy committee. I am going to say I think we need a policy committee again in order to move this stuff forward. And what that basically means is we can have no more than 3 board members on that policy committee, that then any of the discussion there comes to the full board for, again, first reading and second reading. So the full board still looks at everything and votes on everything, but sometimes policy work just takes a long time, and it takes sometimes an hour here, 2 hours there. And we have some additional items that Dr. Bernia tells me are probably coming on down the line. So I think it may be more effective to do that. And I know, Mr. Peterson, you had expressed some interest in being on that policy committee. Do you still want to be on a policy committee?
I would accept that.
And Mrs. Kaplan? Mrs. Fernandez, would you also serve on that committee?
Yes, I will.
Okay, so we are going to then have a policy committee, and Dr. Bernia, you'll work with them and make sure that we get them together and get stuff moving as far as policy. So basically, it'll just be the three of you, just so you know, for policies. We cannot have, by rule, anybody else there. It cannot be more than 3 board members, so those 3 will work, and they will bring that information then forward to us. Again, it'll come to all of us, we'll get to see everything, we'll see that this is how it was, this is the proposed changes, and then eventually we will all vote on it. But I think we have found that it has been a good process in the past, so I think this is a good place for us to go ahead and start. The other piece that I would like us to look at, in addition to the policy information, that one packet we looked at, is we had on our agenda to look at and to talk about the code of ethics. I'd like that to be something that the policy committee talks about as well, so we can bring that back as an agenda item and talk about it. So I'm just going to kind of put that out there. Those were the things I wanted to talk about with policy, but anybody else have any comments or questions at this point? Yes, Mrs. Levin.
I want to say I do agree with the committee approach, so I'm glad we took care of that without having a lot of discussion, because we don't need to do that.
Yeah.
I just want to also put out there that I would hope, in my opinion, that the policy committee decides to address policies with some sort of order, with some sort of plan or organization, rather than just piecemeal, rather than just one policy here, one policy there, with some sort of organization, so that we can, A, follow along, but B, so there's not preference given to a certain set of policies where there might not be preference given to others if it's done in random order. So rather than piecemeal, just in chunks in some way.
Yeah, and to your point, I think initially there are some things that are out of date that we need to get to first, so it may seem like we're not going in some kind of order. And also back in 2020, after many hours and hours of policy committee work that I did with Ms. Van Leeuwen and Ms. Dunn, and then brought everything forward, all of the policies were looked at, were revamped, and were updated. But to your point, it's been several years, so then we can go back and look at the rest of them as well. And we can do that whole thing again if that's what the board deems that we want the policy committee to do. But I think this is where we need to start first, is get the ones that are outdated, or the ones that don't exist that need to exist. We need to get those in place. Did you want to say something, Mrs. Fernandez?
Yeah, I was just thinking if there was something that I personally felt we learned, or that I learned as we had some individual conversations about this over the last 9 months, it's been that holistic approach is something that I would be in favor of. Obviously, as a committee, we'll work through that together, but I feel like there's some very, very foundational things. And working through those holistically. I'm glad that we have admin regs now. That was something that was kind of a bump along the road, as we didn't really know what the supporting admin regs were. And so feels like, though, it might not have felt like tremendous progress, we did make some progress on some things. And I personally would be in favor of some a holistic approach to looking at things. But we'll work as a part of the committee as we see fit.
All right, good. Did you want to say something else? Sure, Mr. Peterson.
In all of our discussions as a board here, and particularly this last 3 months, I do believe that we really need to look as a financial committee also at some point coming very soon. I think that's been an ongoing discussion from the beginning of the year. I think it encompasses more than just understanding the budget and the budget principle. I think there's other factors. And I'll cite, some of our extended contracts within the district. They're old. They haven't been looked at in a long time, and I think that the board needs to take an active role in that. So I'm just going to throw that out there. If it sticks, it sticks. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I do believe we have not had, as a board, a finance committee in any time in the relative past. Maybe not forever.
I'll talk to Dr.
So-
Burney about that
So
and get back with
we
you.
we definitely do need to chew on that. Thank you.
All right. I am going to move on to the Oakland County School Board Association dinner meeting. I have Mrs. Levin, Ms. Tice, and Mr. Siegler. Anybody else planning to attend? Okay. I move that the Board of Education approve the attendance of Mrs. Levin, Ms. Tice, and Mr. Siegler at the Oakland County School Boards Association dinner meeting on Wednesday, October 4th, 2023, and authorize payment of the registration fee. Support. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Michigan Association of School Boards Delegate Assembly. Is there anybody else who's planning to attend besides Mr. Siegler? Okay. I move that the Board of Education approve Mr. Siegler to attend the Michigan Association of School Boards 2023 Delegate Assembly and Annual Leadership Conference from November 9 through 12, 2023 in Lansing, and authorize the registration and payment of accommodations. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0, and we are adjourned at 8:56.